Hi, I'm Keely from Retirement Dreams to Reality, and today I'm going to talk about a really important document that you definitely should have in retirement, but you probably should have way before retirement, and that's a lasting power of attorney. Now, it's been in the news recently. Martin Lewis did an article about it where he was saying how important lasting power of attorney is and how important it is to get it as soon as you can. So for people that don't know, what is a lasting power of attorney?
Really important, this. I think power of attorney is more important than a will. A will decides what happens to your assets if you die. Power of attorney, what happens to your assets if you lose your faculties, you're still alive and you may have your own care and family that you need to look after, but you're no longer capable of doing it yourself. So it's a lasting power of attorney now. It used to be enduring power of attorney. In Scotland, it's continuing power of attorney. Power of attorney. Right, this is where you nominate a friend or relative to take over your finances if you lose your faculties. Doing it does not mean you give up control now. It does not mean that. There are safeguards in place. You nominate other people to check whether it's right that you've lost your faculties or not. And don't think this is just for the elderly. I mean, accidents, stroke, early onset dementia.
Well, a lasting power of attorney, it's actually a document that's registered with the government, and it's where you appoint a person or persons to be responsible for decision making in the absence of you having capacity to make decisions yourself. And this decision making covers two areas. So you can have a lasting power of attorney for property and finance, and you can have a lasting power of attorney for health and welfare. Now, this is something where there's quite a big discrepancy, and people seem to focus on lasting power of attorney for property and finance. LPA for property and finance is where people make decisions about your finances. So, for example, if you lose capacity, then these people can have access to your bank account. They can represent you with a solicitor for selling your property. As on the previous video when I mentioned people worried about the costs of care and unknowns making decisions about finances, then I think that's why people quite often focus on the property and finance LPA rather than the health and welfare LPA. Now, I personally know people that have got a property and finance LPA, but they don't have a health and welfare one. So I found some research, but the only figures I could find was 2021. But in 2021, 350,000 people had a registered lasting power of attorney for property and finance. However, only 280 had a lasting power of attorney registered for health and welfare. So it's not just my personal opinion, it's not just my personal knowledge. There are more people who have registered property and finance rather than health and welfare. So latest figures say that 6 million people have a lasting power of attorney registered. 6 million. So if those figures run true, that means you have 500,000 people more that have a lasting power of attorney for property and finance, not for health and welfare. And in my opinion, health and welfare is way more important for power of attorney than property and finance. And I'll explain why using my personal circumstances very shortly. So I always tell you where you're coming with me on my walk. And today we are a few miles from my home and we're walking to a beautiful place called Newstead Abbey. It is where Byron lived at one point, Byron the writer. And it's a beautiful abbey with gardens, Japanese garden, a park, a really nice cafe. So we're going for a walk there today. So I will start filming again when we get the lovely abbey and lake in the background. Yes, I am recording. I hope you heard those beautiful horses, and I really hope you can hear the babbling brook behind me next to the West Lodge gatehouse. So I've explained what a power of attorney is, and I've explained briefly about how people seem to focus more on property and finance rather than health and welfare. And I will go into that in more detail shortly. But how do you get a power of attorney? How do you register? How do you sign up for a lasting power of attorney? Now, it actually can be a very, very simple, very reasonably cheap priced document, because you can do it all online. You can do every bit of it on the government website, which we'll put a link down below. And it's all done online. You fill out all the form, and each power of attorney, each LPA document is £82 currently. So if you decided to do both of them, property and finance and health and welfare, that's £164. Now, once you've done it, it gets registered and it just sits. It just sits, all completed, waiting for when, if ever, you need to use it. If the person loses capacity and you have to start using the lasting power of attorney, then you get given a number, you get given copies. It's all quite simple once you need to use it, but it just sits there. So you can do it 20, 30, however many years before you need it. Now, some people will be a bit wary of doing it themselves. And because when we did ours for my mum, she had already started the process of dementia, but she was very early days in dementia. So she still had capacity, but we were worried that she would lose capacity whilst we were going through the process. So we paid somebody to do it for us. She wasn't actually a solicitor. She was somebody who specialised in legal documents. And it cost us, for my mum's power of attorney, £500. Now, if you get it done by a solicitor, it can be anything up to £1,000. I think that's for both of them. But when you think, if you do it early and have time on your side, and you've got the ability for them to send the form back, tell you that's not quite right, go back in and do it again, and you're under no time constraints, then £164 compared to £1,000 just for filling a few forms in is a huge, huge difference. So yeah, that's how you get the lasting power of attorney. You have a few decisions to make. You have to decide who you want the attorney or attorneys to be. So, and you can also have to decide whether you want them to make the decisions jointly or severally. So can they, if you've got 2 or 3 attorneys, can they make the decisions solely on their own, or have all the decisions got to be made together? And you can also stipulate certain things in it. So for the health and welfare one, you can stipulate what you want to happen to you if you lose capacity in the document, just so the people have your wishes. And for the finance one, you can stipulate things like you want to pay members of your family to care for you. I don't know how legally binding those things are, but I have been told that that's a really good thing to do in your lasting power of attorney. So that's how you set them up. It all has to be registered with the government. You can do it all yourself, or you can appoint, like if you do a will, you can do a lasting power of attorney at the same time. That's what me and my husband did for mine. But with my mum, we paid somebody to specifically just do the power of attorney. And I also know people who have just gone online and done it themselves. So that's quite a simple thing to do. And very shortly, in the distance, you will see the Abbey. So, for the final bit of the video, I'm going to explain why I think that the lasting power of attorney for health and welfare is as important, if not more important, than the lasting power of attorney for property and finance. But first of all, I'm going to show you this beauty. This is less than 3 miles from my house. How absolutely gorgeous is this? Newstead Abbey in North Nottinghamshire. It's a beautiful sunny Friday morning. That's now houses and apartments, that building there. And any second now. Yeah, absolutely stunning. Can we see that? And I believe you can hire out the grounds for wedding photos. Yeah. When Mum got dementia, we'd got the lasting power of attorneys in place. So we were able to make lots and lots of decisions, us as a family, rather than social workers, rather than solicitors, and rather than anybody else, anybody in the legal field or anybody in the social care field. We were able to make the decisions. The first thing was we were able to make the decision because we had lasting power of attorney for property and finance, but also because we had lasting power of attorney for health and welfare. Her 3 daughters were able to make the decision that she now needed to go in a care home. We were able to decide which care home. We were able to put our house on the market to fund the care home. And that was because of the property and finance power of attorney that we had to send to the solicitor. Since our house has been sold and all the bank accounts are now controlled by my sister, then the property and finance one doesn't seem to have come back into play anymore. We don't seem to have used that one. But maybe it was crucial at the time of selling the house. So me saying that the health and welfare one is more important is ignoring the fact that it was only simple because we had the property and finance one. But now the property and finance one doesn't really come into play anymore. My sister pays the little bit that's left of Mum's money for the care home fees, because most of it is now funded. She just has a little top up. So my sister pays that using the property and finance LPA with the bank, but apart from that we don't use it. However, look at that, I've got to do that because that is just beautiful. On a weekly, monthly basis, we have to use our health and welfare LPA. Every time Mum needs medical treatment, every time the paramedics come, every time she needs scans, whatever Mum needs in terms of her health, we are constantly asked, do you have power of attorney for health and welfare? And that's happened so much over the last few years. If we hadn't have had lasting power of attorney for health and welfare, then somebody else, a social worker, somebody else involved in social care, maybe somebody at the care home, I'm not sure, but somebody else would have made those decisions. But because we had lasting power of attorney, we were able to make those decisions. And that is far, far, far more important to us than even the property and finance. Knowing that we can make the best decisions for our mum because, and solely because of the health and welfare power of attorney is huge, massive. Even down to, does she have a DNR or not? That is our decision. when we make the decision to do a DNR, that's the decision of the three of us together. That's massive. So, my final words would be, 1, get your letter from power of attorney really, really early, your 30s and 40s. 2, I would recommend having it severally, because then it causes less problems if people are in different countries or different places, so they can make the decisions themselves rather than everybody have to make the decisions together. But more importantly, it is as important, if not more important, to get the health and welfare one rather than just property and finance. That's Keely from Retirement Dreams to Reality. Thanks for watching.